1929 that somebody wrote about it.
Oh, wow.
And you can put any subject you want in it, and it gives you things from libraries, documents from, and depending on how far back it goes, I found something from, 1700s. It's called Internet Archive.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. By the way, you remember that you're doing one of the presentations, right?
Yes.
With Greg.
How do I coordinate this with Greg?
I can put you in contact with him.
Because I want to know which library I would be doing.
I think there's two, right? Alexandria and
Yes.
and Babylon, whichever, or Assyrian one.
Yes.
So that's that. I want to welcome some new people. Paul, welcome.
Hi, Zach. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Paul is a long friend. I know him for 20 years. Was working for Paul fairly recently. So good man.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, of course. So who is new also? Lan has been here already. Fred has been here. The regulars. Hi,
Regulars.
Hi, Ralph.
Hello.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Hi.
Ralph looks like a Greek scholar.
Yeah. Ralph has helped me on the last presentation. I appreciate it, Ralph. Thank you. With the history of gunpowder and guns. So. Non-violent history.
Non-violent, is that an oxymoron?
Yeah.
Non-violent.
Yeah, listen. What can you do? Oh, Lisa is here. Wow. Yael, how are you? Lisa. So we'll give it a couple of minutes, people to join.
What's on your shirt, Zach? It looks like.
So what am I going to talk today about, right? I'm talking about the Egyptian, right? So I have, me and my son went to Florida back in the day. So I went to, Orlando, Florida, and I got the pharaohs from the Book of the Dead. Might as well, right?
Yeah, very good. You dressed the part, right?
Osiris Resurrection today. Not that I'm associated with Osiris, God forbid. Just in general.
I like that. You dress for the part.
Well, that, and it's also laundry day, so too.
A laundry day.
So anyway, today's subject matter will be, we're going to talk about, I just want to generally, before people gathering, talk about ancient Nubia, and it's very stretched. As there's more discoveries has been happening, it's a very stretched notion. I'll talk about it today, but particularly, I'll talk about today mostly concentrating on of culture, Kerma, and city Nabata, and talk a little bit about city Meroe. The interesting fact, you could say, like, this is first pharaohs, first black pharaohs, basically, that particularly 25th dynasty of pharaohs were all Nubian, and that's definitely something that has been discovered, and it's an interesting fact as well. We're going to talk about that. This is something that it's not really clear, but I think the 14th and 15th dynasty pharaohs are also part of the intermarriages between Egyptian and Nubians, and we'll talk about it as well. But as we know, there was a lot of interconnection. Anything that's forward from, and we'll talk about it, anything that's forward from the first cataract on Nile River, that's considered to be Nubia. Everything above or below, however you have it, and I'll show it on the map, is Egypt, and therefore the outpost worked accordingly. So I'm just giving a little background onto that effect. Oh, Marika is joining, so I'll give it a couple of more minutes. So yeah, I mean, if people are, like I said, yeah, go. Hi, Marika, how are you? So the way that discussion works here is you can ask a question at any point. Obviously, we ask people to be courteous, and somebody's asking questions, still let them finish, and then you can ask a question. You can either raise hand or just start speaking. This is pretty informal. None of us are experts in any material we're posting. I hope there's no copyright issues and stuff like that. This is just all purely for entertainment purposes. We're not offering any advice here, or and then we're not historians. We're just trying to learn history and enjoy it. I mean, most of the people enjoy it. Recently we had some people present. I'm always looking for presenters. There's a sloth of Romans, subject that we posted from the initiation of Roman Republic and First Kings to almost Augustus. There's like literally a year worth of material. If anybody wants to step up and present, please let me know, because truthfully, this is the third one in a row I'm presenting, and there's another one Wednesday, so the fourth one in a row I'm presenting, and and we all have families and have work, and I definitely want people to step up and help me. Even though sometimes maybe it's too much, just let me know, and then we can move some. Like, for example, I'm looking for a presenter for Etruscans, and it's fairly close. So if anybody wants to step up and take that, I can always move the date of Etruscans, and somebody can take that over and present that.
Hey, Zach,
Yes.
when are the Etruscans? When's that presentation?
Actually, May 1st, but because Hadrian just told me, like literally several days ago, that he's not going to be able to do it. Hadrian's supposed to do it, and he dropped out.
Okay.
Pretty unfortunate, but he's been busy at work, so I can't really blame him.
Yeah.
And I can always move that to another date if anybody wants to take over. I can move it to a month out or whatever you want.
Yeah. Let me think about it. I may be interested in presenting on the Etruscans. This is Lisa, by the way.
Oh, Lisa, sure, yeah, of course, Lisa, yeah. We always enjoy.
I'll let you know in a week's time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Like I said, always look at the schedule. When I say link presenters, that means that, basically presenters needed. All right, I'm gonna start a little, and then as people join, and we will, 14 people are on right now. We're expecting good turnout, 22 people, but it's a weekend, so, and it's nice weather outside. All right, so let me minimize this. All right. So as I've mentioned, today we're going to talk about Kingdom of Kush, or Nubia. Nubia, very stretched. Anything that's past First Cataract on Nile River, that what we're going to talk about, that's connected to Egyptian culture. And the dates are on the bottom, 3800 BC. And 1400 AD. Just to give you an example, around 300 BC, the mammoth in Siberia were still walking around. So it's a long time ago. All right. So we'll start a little bit, talking about Neolithic people in the Nile, and just kind of establish what kind of group that lived there. Basically, Neolithic people in Nile Valley likely came from Sudan. As well as Sahara. There was shared culture between Egypt and Nubia, and during this time, by the 5th millennium BC, the people who inhabited what is now called Nubia participated in the Neolithic Revolution. Megalith discovered at Nabata Playa are early examples of what seemed to be one of the world's first astronomical devices, predating Stonehenge by almost 2,000 years. So having said that, we'll talk about it a little bit more. So I just want to put it in kind of timely format. And so basically today, what I wanted to do, I wanted to split it in two groups, so timely format. First one, archaeological. So we have Mesolithic, Neolithic, all the way kind of to 4000s. Then you have group A that settled in around Nubia area. Then around 3000, 2500, we have pre-Kerma, period. Kerma is a culture. Then in around 2000s, and all the way to almost 1500s, we have Kerma, C group, and Pangrave group. And I'll talk about what they are, and we're particularly mostly interested in Kerma, and they all interconnected. 1500, we have New Kingdom, and particularly today I'm going to be focusing on Nabata, Nabata, and Meroic period. Meroic is going to kind of switch into the Roman period, and I want to, because we haven't gone to the Rome yet, so I don't want to touch the Rome yet. So therefore, I'm going to talk about anything that predates Rome and Greece. And then when we switch to Rome, I will talk about the second part of it. So major events, I'll just kind of flip forward. 2500, you have 3000, we have the first kingdoms in Nubia were established. 2500, we have Egyptian raids toward Nubia, and we'll talk about it. But while they're raiding Nubia, they also have trade expeditions. And Lisa sometime in the future is going to talk about the Amarna letters, and where they specifically talk about the trade with Nubia, particularly extracting gold from Nubia. Not much of a trade; it's more like a seizure of gold. Then you have Kingdom of Kush with capital in Kerma, and then you have Egyptian conquest, Nabata, and then trade with Greece and Rome, which we won't get to it today. All right, so today is just anything that has to do with oldest kingdom, intermediate period, and beginning of a new kingdom in Egypt, just to put it in perspective. Particularly talking about relationship between Egypt and Nubia, just going to go through some bullet points here. We have, Egypt starting raiding Nubia, beginning of the first intermediate period. And then, when New Kingdom was established, we have actually new 25th dynasty that's going to be a Nubian pharaohs that conquer Egypt. And we'll talk about it as well. All right, so just to put it in perspective, and this is very broad, and I'll have more detailed map, but basically we're talking about two cities. So we have Egypt here. We have two cities, Nabata and Meroe. Nabata was the first city, Nubian. Second one is Meroe, and I'll show you where it is on the map. So this is both maps of the current map comparison to the old map. On the left, you have different cataracts. So the Egyptian, you would say the old kingdom border would stop at first cataract, and everything going forward was actually has to do with Nubia and the conquest of Egypt of Nubia. And as you're going through here, you see this Kerma culture right here, and the city of Nabata and Meroe are in the fourth and fifth cataract. Okay, so anybody have any questions or no? Okay. All right, so around 3800, BC, second Nubian culture termed A group arose. It was contemporary with ethnical and cultural, and very similar to polities of pre-dynastic Nagada of Upper Egypt. So basically very similar culture with how the Egypt was developed. Around 3300, there was an evidence of United Kingdom. And they're saying there's different finds in Kastum period that maintained substantial interaction of both cultures, Egyptian and Nubian, with culture of Nagatan, Upper Egypt. And I will get into the maps, I'll show you all that. Nubian culture may have been contributed to the unification of the Nile Valley, okay? So as you know, there was unification in Egypt, and it actually was contributed via Nubia. This culture began to decline early 28th century. And this A group had declined, the B group came back, and the B group actually was considered as a much poorer version of the A group. Just basically you would think of, you have higher class people, and this is a poor society that arose and took over for the A group, right? The causes of this B group taking over for the A group is uncertain. There's really no written evidence of the, which I'll be talking about, current, culture, but there's a lot of archaeological evidences. So, Nubia served as a trade corridor between Egypt and tropical Africa long before 3100 BC. Egyptian craftsmen of the period used ivory, ebony wood from tropical Africa, which came through Nubia. Basically, there's only really two major traders in the world that were trading, ebony or the tusks of elephants. Was Indians and Nubians. In 2300, Nubia was first mentioned. Old Kingdom Egypt accounts of the trade mission, and we'll get to it where it was mentioned. From Aswan. Aswan is actually considered to be Egypt. Right above the first cataract, which I've mentioned, I showed southern limit of Egyptian control of the time. Egyptians import gold, incense, ebony from Nubia, ivory, exotic animals from tropical Africa through Nubia. Trade between Egypt and Nubia increased, so did wealth and stability. By Egyptian 6th dynasty, Nubia was divided into a series of small kingdoms. All right.
Zach,
Yes.
a quick kind of general question. Do they have the same situation that they have in Egypt? Like every year they have the inundation and very rich soil, or was it different after the first cataract, the landscape and everything changed?
Landscape changed significantly. And one of the reasons that Meroe cultures, went away it's already in AD was because of the drying climates.
Okay.
It was definitely different for them, and we'll get into what they were used to do. During the Egyptian Middle Kingdom, 2040 and 1640, Egypt began expanding into Nubia to gain more control over trade routes in northern Nubia and direct access trade with southern Nubia. This garrison seemed to have peaceful relation with local Nubian people, but little interaction with the period. So now we have like the first interactions between the two. So as I said, there's literally very small, because there was no written evidence from Kerma, but let's just show what archaeologically was shown. So as I mentioned before, there was 3 different groups that lived in Nubia area, right? The first group is called C group, right? And this is everything archaeologically that was found for C group. And you might have seen some of these artifacts. Second group was Pangrave. And Egyptians had different names for different groups. Kerma, they called Nabata, Pangrave, they called, Magi. C group, they called something else. So already had a distinguishing names. But if you can see what's very unique about them, and I know this is not very clear on the third Kerma, but on the bottom of it, on the bottom here, they actually have a lot of depiction of animals. So all of this particular pottery has animals on it, this particular masks, and here you have burial of animals. So all 3 cultures have an incredible similarity to depicting a lot of animals. So I'm just going to admit somebody. And let me just show you in the map how these cultures were situated.
Hey, Zach, sorry,
Yeah.
this is Lisa. What's the thing in the bottom right-hand corner?
Which
sorry, I can't tell if it's like bones or animal
pottery
or something.
and this is jewelry. Sorry.
Okay, and then what's on the left-hand side to the
left? Oh, I'm sorry. This was the depiction of a woman with a lot of what is a political way of saying it? Rather
Stereostygrapus.
correct. Yeah.
But the other one I was talking about was the one next to the jewelry.
I think she talks about Kerma.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kerma.
I'm sorry. This is a burial of animals.
Oh, okay, got it.
Sorry, this was animals that were buried. I'm sorry.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And this is, and I'm sorry for the bad picture, but we're particularly interested in Kerma. But as I've said, this is Thebes. If you want to put it in the Egyptian format, this is your Memphis, or, and here you have First Cataract, and this is where Kerma people were situated. And again, this is a modern identification of how they identified people based on the pottery and different archaeological evidence that they found. Pengrave was a little bit further down and more inclusive, but they all interconnected. And in here, C group is actually within the group of the Kerma. So they all interconnected, but at the same time, there were three distinct but similar groups that were occupying this area. All right, so what is Kerma? Okay. So Kerma period of Nubian history is so named for the city of Kerma, okay, which was located in Third Cataract, Nile River, and Upper Nubia. So let's look at the map. As I've said, it's around this area. It's located around this area, okay? City of Kerma. All right, let's go back to explanation. All right. So Third Cataract between Nile River and Upper Nubia. Despite an Egyptian hostility toward Nubians, they did engage in peaceful trade from early period. Inscription on the 6th dynasty Pepi, who was the king from 2274, or the pharaoh from 2274 and 2184, relate how the king, royal emissary, his name is Harkuf, led an expedition into province of Nubia, known as Yam, and brought back a pygmy, along with other precious resources. A letter from Pepi, second to Harkuf, his emissary, says, "Never before have one like him been brought by other." So the first time you ever see a pygmy, and he goes, "Where is this from?" He goes, "Well, I visited Yam, which is the area of Nubia, and I brought this, but there's other things that they brought, obviously." So if we go to the further area. So this was and I know this, this obviously from the papyrus. This was the first map of Egyptian depicting Nubia, and it's called Turin Papyrus. It was actually found by the French ambassador. And it's the first map mapping out Nubia after the First Cataract, due to this emissaries going through, I mean, not one, several emissaries going through and mapping it out, basically. And in papyrus, it shows the picture of, basically where the Nubia is.
Zach, where did they find that piece? Do you know?
It was actually found in the village close to Cairo. I forget the name of the village.
Okay, just interested.
Yeah. So, as I've said initially, Kerma has been divided in several subdivisions. You have Neolithic pre-Kerma culture, early Kerma, 2500 2050, Middle Kerma, and classical Kerma. I'm going to be talking about classical Kerma. And just to show you on the right, which I'll talk about it, that's the archaeological finding that relates to the classical Kerma period, around the classical Kerma period, right on the borderline. All right, so city of Kerma, how did it look? So on the left, you see a temple that was erected, and Kerma is in western Dafufa, which I've showed you a modern map and a depiction of the ancient map. And if you would scale how the city of Kerma was, depicted, the Swiss archaeology mission Sudan actually depicted. If you look to this temple, the temple is right in the middle. You see that the white structure. That's the surrounding structures around it. And this white structure is this temple that's currently standing in the city of Kerma, okay? From 1750 BC, sort of 18th century or so. All right. So,
Zach,
Yeah.
sorry, are we seeing like paws, are those sphinxes that are represented in the background or just natural landscape?
It's just natural landscape.
Natural landscape, it almost looks like,
Yeah, it looks
Oz.
like, it looks like a form, right? It was just a temple.
Yeah, it does.
Like this. The temple looked like this. I don't know if you can see it well. It looks like a white building.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering like where that natural landscape figure is in that scale model. I think that's why I was.
Yeah, that's this one, white building.
Oh, it is. Okay.
All right. So, and again, if anybody wants to add anything, ask more questions, please go ahead. So now, let's just move forward a little bit. I just want to show you how the people looked. So who was the Kermian people from Kerma? They're actually multi-ethnic federation, and they're Irjet Nubians, Magi Nubians, Yam Nubians, Vavat Nubians, Kaunaut Nubians. Those are the C, Pangrave, and the Kermans that Egyptians had identified, the 3 different groups. And actually Magi, and you can see on the right, they actually served in the Old Kingdom. This picture, they were served under the different pharaohs as mercenaries and policemen. Nubian Magi Nubians were serving. That's how we know about it. And we just already spoke about Harkuf, emissary of Seti, Pharaoh Seti, who went into this region and therefore wrote about it and brought Pygmy with him, basically. And how does this relate to anything? So basically, so the picture on the right is the image of Nubian soldiers dating to the Middle Kingdom of 11th dynasty, found in the area of Aserut. Image bottom is a stele of a Nubian soldier called Nenu. Okay, and we'll talk about it in the future. I just wanted to bring it up. So this is the depiction of all the soldiers from Nubia that served under, as mercenaries in Pharaoh's armies. And this is just one soldier with his family, his son, his daughter, his dogs. And we'll talk about what's so different about it, And then what did the soldiers do? And, they were bowmen, they actually had a name for them. They call them Tasseti. So Egyptians call them Tasseti, which means bowmen. They were awesome bowmen. And that's why that they were so coveted and in demand. So what's interesting, the Nubian Kerma culture received a reprieve from Egypt's central government. And so what's interesting is initially they actually had incursions into the Egypt. That's why Egypt had realized that, they're amazing soldiers because the way they fight, they have, meanwhile we're able to hire them as the mercenaries. So what's interesting, after the collapse of the Old Kingdom, during the civil war between Theban and Heracleopolitans, during the first intermediate period in Egypt, Vavat Nubian soldiers figured prominent in the military of both factions. So Egypt had a civil war in around 1750 between Thebans, who is one of the capital, and Heracleopolis, which is another capital, and Nubians are serving on both sides. The Gabalian Nubians mercenaries fought on the side of the Heracleopolis, but Nubian warriors, those Vavat warriors, also fought on the side of the Theban armies. So they were on both sides. They were just mercenaries. They didn't really care. They were utilized by both Atef, who was one of the pharaohs, and Mentuhotep, another pharaoh. So they're trying to, the stele of the Nenu, again, this stele of the Nenu soldier right here, just wanted to describe, on the bottom right, there's basically, in this stele, it says that it shows the life of a Nubian soldier in the 11th dynasty. And the stele presents the archer Nenu, so he's a bowman, he's a Tasseti, and his Egyptian wife Sektar. So now we're seeing intermarriages going on. So how do we know that she's Egyptian? The scene also highlights their son, daughter, servant, along with the hunting dogs. Nenu wears Nubian attire, okay? while his wife is actually wearing Egyptian dress, white dress, and the intermarriages were very common. So what's interesting, Nubian soldier is wearing the Nubian dress, while wife is wearing Egyptian dress. So she's Egyptian marrying Nubian, so it was kind of accepted. And the kids are wearing what he's wearing, you know, and then you have a servant there, and so you can say that they really, Nubians, you know, they weren't slaves. They actually rose up the ranks and took, had servants and all that other stuff. So, any questions?
I have a quick question. How do they travel? I mean, the first cataract, they were traveling by boat, north-south, but then there is the cataract. So what do? They dismount the
So
boat?
yeah, right, you're right. Cataract is like big boulders in the middle of the you know, Nile. So what they used to do is they used to tie a rope between the two sides and literally carry the boat over, or they found a way around cataract. There would be like a small section that they would be able to literally either by foot, or they have to, you know, tie a boat between two sides and literally carry it over. I mean, there weren't large boats, but if you carry obviously a bunch of pygmies and different, you know, elephant tasks, you know, it might be a problem. So it was a task, and it's not just one cataract. You know, in order to get deep into the Nubia, you have to go through 5 cataracts. It's with 5 cataracts. So this is
I'm going south. You were actually climbing the cataract, or you were going down the cataract? Anyway, you have to come up one way or another, right?
correct. You were the, I mean, they most likely climbing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the river goes down in
Okay.
order to flow. So if you're going south, you got to climb.
I thought that the river go north. That's what he said.
Yeah. So that's why if you go south, you have to climb. goes
Okay.
higher.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, sorry. So what's interesting is now Egypt, you know, obviously have this amazing soldiers, but you know, there's always threat from Nubians. And before we get to that, let me just come back to that. There was a threat from Nubians. So in the 11th dynasty, all the way to 17th dynasty, they built a bunch of outposts. And on the left here, we're talking about different outposts in this area of Egypt after the during the Ottomans, they conquered all of the Nubia, and they built outposts in Buhan, Mergisa, Dahanardi, Akhun. And what's interesting, one of the governors, his name is Sobnatech, writes about this Nubian people, and he writes, Kush came aroused along his length, he having steered up the tribes of Bavad and island dwellers of the Netafer and Maja. So basically, they're saying they're pretty, you know, vicious people. They call them actually vile, you know, just like Greek stuff, barbarians from the, you know, Persians, barbarians, and therefore they're on. They thought of Nubians as barbarians. They specifically call them vile people. So under Thutmose I, Egypt made several campaigns south in destroying Kerma. This eventually resulted in Egyptian annexation of Nubia, Kerma, Kush in 1504, and the establishment of southern frontier in Kyrgyz, which is what I've mentioned, south of the 4th cataract. So if you go back to the map, Egypt now in 14th century is already on the 4th cataract, close to Nabata, which is another capital for the you know, culture of Kerma, and they're right here. So they already pushed out all the Nubians down. So so what's interesting is after the conquest of Kerma, culture was increasingly Egyptianized, right? So that a lot of the Egyptian culture, you know, basically was adopted by Nubians. Yet rebellions continued for 220 years till the 1300 BC. During the New Kingdom, Kerma and Kush nevertheless became a key province of Egyptian empire, economically, politically, and spiritually. Indeed, and we'll talk about this area, major pharaonic ceremonies were held at Jebel Barkal near Nabata, which is, you see this Nabata, there was a sacred, or they call it a clear mountain, where they prayed to the god of Amun, Egyptian pharaohs, and they came all the way down here to pray. All right. And this particular area, Jebel Barbel, which means in Arabic a clear mountain, or clear mountain. Sorry. So what's interesting is, though, while they're conquering Nubians, but they had a lot of soldiers that, you know, obviously had relations with a lot of the Egyptian, you know, women, and specifically 11th and 12th dynasty, Nebhapetri Amanhat is considered to be basically a product of intermarriage of Nubian and Egyptian blood. So it's a mixed blood pharaohs already. And who are they? All right. So both were founders of the dynasty. Menhotep, which is on the left, the second is a founder of 11th dynasty, and Amanhat, the first, is a founder of the 12th dynasty. So they're right next to each other. The funeral temple complex of Menhotep shows 6 burial shrines right next to each other at the Hathor, which is, you know, their area, comprised of Nubian women who served as a Hathor priestess. You know, Hathor was the god of skies, and you know, and 5 of the 6 women were identified as wives of Menhotep. One of the queens, identified as Ashayed, was portrayed in her sarcophagus as a dark woman, as were her companion Queen Kemset and Queen Kawit. Okay, so
Zach, what are the dates here? 11 and 12. What are the centuries? 11 and 12 dynasties.
It's a middle kingdom around 1800.
1800 BC, right? Okay.
So so it's interesting. They're finding a lot of Nubian women. They married, out of 6 wives, 5 of them were Nubian for the Menhotep. Okay. Amenhot is famous because Nefertiti, everybody knows who Nefertiti is, the first queen. I think she was Thoth's mother, right? She was, you know, first.
She was the wife of the what's his name? Who created the Amarna.
Yeah.
Akhenaten. Wife of Akhenaten.
Yeah, wife of Akhenaten. She explicitly stated about Amenhot, a king will come from the south, Ameni, the son of the woman of the Tasseti. Remember who Tasseti are, right? They're Nubians. The child, or the upper Egypt, the prophecy is communicated that not only is Amenhotep the first to prophesy savior who will restore the 2 lands, but he's also an Egyptian of Nubian ethnicity heritage from Upper Egypt. So we're thinking of the 25th dynasty being fully Nubian, but there is the theory, right, that the 11th and 12th were both Nubian dynasties because they were intermixed marriages. And what's interesting, Amenhotep was actually not of royal blood and came to prominence. I think he was serving as a priest. Don't quote me on it. Sorry for that, about that. So anyway, Nubians actually not just had a connection with Egyptians, they actually made overtures to Hyksos too, for some type of non-aggression treaty or even alliance against Egypt. Okay, so now Middle Kerma, 2015, 1750, what you will see, so one second, let me just go back to this vessel. I just want to talk a little bit about the culture. So I've pointed that in the Middle Kerma of 2015, 1750, they basically found this vessel. And then, so what's happening here, how is this vessel different? As you can see, this is still pretty much an African or Nubian culture without interference of anything from Egypt, because it's not related to Egypt at all. And what makes it different? So it's a bell-shaped Kerma beaker. This was the hallmark of the classical Kerma civilization, classical Kerma ware. It is an outright of a long melodic tradition of block-top red polish ware, and it marked the zenith of the ceramic technology in the ancient kingdom of Kerma. This particular beaker was found and on Egyptian side of Abydos. So they're basically showing that there was a clear trade in the classical Kerma and between classical Kerma and Middle Kingdom, and this particular beacons were found everywhere in Egypt. Now let's talk about this particular area. The ancient city of Kerma on your left, this was Western Dafufa, towering 25 meters high. This was a temple I was telling you. There was a mud brick or Adabi temple that was in the center of the town of Kerma. To your right, you can see a scale model of what the city looked like, put out by Swiss Archaeological Mission Sudan. The kingdom of Kerma was the largest of the second intermediate period states. So during the second intermediate period, that you will see the map, basically, that's what it is. So on the right, you can see this particular structure. That was a temple that I was explaining to you in particular. So let's just move on a little bit. We'll have to cover, sorry. So now let's go through different dynasties in Egypt so that we can get better understanding what happened in the middle to late stages of the dynastic period. So, and we have Ramses. After Ramses, we have 13th, 14th century, 14th dynasty. 14th dynasty was actually Canaanite, Nile Delta, Canaanite dynasty. So they were descendants from current state Israel and Canaan, 1805 to 1650. Then we actually have Hyksos, the 15th dynasty, who actually came as to move into Egypt on the pretense of economic opportunity, and then took over. On the 16th century, we have Theban. 16th dynasty, we have Theban. 17th dynasty, we still have Thebans. So what I'm going to is, I want to work my way into the 25th dynasty, which is a Nubian dynasty. So I just want to give a little bit of background. So after Ramses, that's around 18th century, I think it was 18th dynasty. Ramses II was actually, if you remember, there's Battle of Kadesh with Hittites. So basically, what's happening is Egypt is on decline. Egypt, the way that Egypt operated is there used to be a triumvirate where the army, the pharaoh, and the priests worked together to rule Egypt. And in order to make that work, pharaoh would give land to both army and the temple. So a lot of the priests became richer than pharaohs, right? So now fast forward 24th dynasty, and there's this guy, his name is Ramses the 11th, right? And basically he finds that the priests revolted because, well, why do we need you? We have all these people that you gave us land, you gave us all this, we have everything, we don't need you. So they revolted. I'm sorry, not 24th, 22nd dynasty. They revolted, and basically, and priests became the pharaohs. And actually, they call about 200 years or so, priests were ruling, in that dynasty, and it was totally pharaoh's fault because they kept promoting that idea. So now, what's interesting is the priests are not recognized as being, divine, as far as pharaohs were the thing. You always have to have a proper lineage, and there's revolt breaks out. The Egypt divides in in two different principalities, and then it divides into more. Anyway, there's this king. I wouldn't even call him a pharaoh. His name is, and I'll get to this. Sorry. So his name is Pi or Pianhi. Okay, he's a Nubian king. So while Egypt was in turmoil, as you know, Egypt literally was sucking the blood line of the Nubians by taking all of their gold. But because Egypt was in so much turmoil for about 200 to 300 years, under Hyksos, and the Nubians were, basically having to leave all those gold for themselves. And this first king, his name is Pianhi or Pi, decides that he wants to invade and into Egypt. But what's interesting, he considered himself an Egyptian, but not the Egyptian of current state. Egyptians that lived 2,000 years ago, the ones that built the pyramids, the Cheops pyramids, and stuff like that. So he wants to restore the Egypt to the old way of religion. He wants to restore the Egypt to the old way of building, pyramids, and still commemorating the god of Amun and stuff like that. So and this is what's happening. So basically, this King Pi, and this is him on the bottom, right? Enters Egypt and conquers all the principalities, all these little princes that divided, and they actually bow to him. This is an inscription in Nubia if it's victory stela, and you can see on the left they're bowing to him, saying, we're very sorry, you're our king." But he's very smart. He doesn't want to conquer them and basically kill them all. He leaves them to rule while he's going back to the north and ruling from Nubia. But the only problem he has is when he enters Egypt and he sees all these princesses, he was an equestrian. He loved horses. He loved actually horses better than humans. And he sees all these malnutritious horses that are not fed, they're not, particularly cared for, and he punishes all these principalities. As you can see on his stela, he depicts the horse as one of the, and the horse is above all the bowing principles, all these little kings that are not deserving of him. Sorry, I'm just gonna admit somebody. So, so he's smart, right? He doesn't want to just leave them. Oh, go ahead. So he's smart, right? He doesn't just want to leave them be because they're going to be revolting again while he's ruling from Nubia. He went back to Nubia and they're collecting taxes for him. They're sending it to him. So he sends his sister, Amarnides the first, okay? And his sister is becoming a treasurer for the, and lives in Thebes while he's living in Nabata in Nubia, and she's ruling for him, okay? Nubians had the utmost respect for women. They buried their women next to men, while in Egypt, the value of the kings are separate from the value of the queens and all that stuff. So there, the view is saying, a value of the kings were in the same area as in Nubia, as the sons would be buried with mothers, with their sisters and stuff like that. So there was no distinguishment. So how does he sell this, right? What does he do? He's appointing her as a priestess, and he calls her, it's the one that adores King, hold on. Oh, he calls her a divine adoratress of Amun, which means she wedded the god Amun. She's his wife, basically, and they can't say anything about it. But what he means is she got a pulse on the treasury, and she doesn't, he doesn't want to release, doesn't want to lose that control. He's very smart. And he, basically, because priests became so powerful, He wanted to keep the money for himself. So as I said, what's interesting is, the name Candace, where it came from? It's actually came from the Nubian queen Kandake, because Nubians love their women so much that's why name Candace is so used right now everywhere. That's actually named after the Nubian queen Kandake.
Sorry, Zach, you be candid, like candid?
Yes,
Oh,
because Nubians love their women and respected them just like equals. Okay, I'm gonna stop if you guys have any questions or you want to ask anything.
Zach, the inscription, that's Egyptian. I mean, it's written in Egyptian.
Correct.
But are they Egyptians depicted bounding? That's
Yes. What's
Wow.
interesting is, and we'll get to that, they actually use 26 different. So they just added 26 characters to their alphabet, but they essentially used Egyptian alphabet. All they did is they added 26 characters to it, and Nubians adopted it. So the Nubians priests, and you would think they would go to Thebes to study. There wasn't cultural exchange, so they would send all this rich sons to study in Thebes, and so basically they already knew how to write and read in Egyptian. I hope I answer your question. So I just want to read this inscription, what he wrote. So when he conquered Egypt, this Pianhe, Nubian king, and he goes to a staple, and this is what he writes. His Majesty proceeded to the stable of the horses and quarters of the foals. When he saw that they had suffered hunger, he said, I swear, as Ra loves me, as my nostrils are rejuvenated with life, it is more grievous in my heart that my horses have suffered hunger than any evil deed thou hast done. What does he mean? Basically, he goes in and he sees these horses. He owns Egypt, right? He conquered Egypt. This is his horses. How dare this little principality, kings, try to malnourish these horses? This is like malnourishing him. So he basically says, you can't malnourish my property. This is my property. I will be very mad. So he threatens them, but he still leaves them in charge to collect taxes and rule for him. And what's interesting, and when he was buried, this is his burial site in Nubia, in that clear mountain. He was buried with horses, and this is his pyramid. So what's
also, I think it's interesting the hats. I mean, the crown is not the regular crown of the upper Egypt and lower Egypt. I mean, they both have a funny crown, so it's not the Egyptian crown.
Correct. That is correct. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's absolutely correct. Yeah, I mean, it's they didn't want to. What they did is what he did is what was the difference between him and Egyptians? He wanted to bring back from 2,000 years ago. They haven't built pyramids, big pyramids like pyramids of Cheops for 2,000 years already. So he's building a first pyramid for himself, even though it's a Nubian pyramid. It doesn't look anything like Egyptian pyramid, due to the fact that there's there is a lack of material in Nubia. He had to build a more stiffer pyramid. We'll talk about it. But if you think of it, he's the first one that said, you know what, I'm gonna bring back the old Egypt, the old gods, the old way of honoring gods and building tombstone. Also, what was interesting about him, when you look at the Bible, they actually call this Ethiopian dynasty a pious Ethiopian kings in the Bible. And we'll get to that why.
Zach, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
did they consider only the royals or the emperors rode the horses? And was it always considered, as the centuries went on, that is a status symbol to be on a horse?
No, the Nubian horseman has been known for a long time, and the cavalry used horses. It wasn't just for
Okay.
royal. Yeah. As you know, Hannibal had a Nubian cavalry, but that was much later, obviously, during the Roman times. But you know, I think his general was, you know, Sinitsa. So it was they've used it quite extensively. And Nubian, you know, could shoot off they almost like were nomads, like Pechenegs or, you know, or Genghis Khan warriors. They could shoot probably off the horses, and they were.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. They were nomads, so they have to have something to travel on.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, as he's conquering Egypt, he's passing through all these areas, and he goes into the area of Karnak, where, you know, Karnak is the most religious part of the area for Egyptians. And he actually, in the middle of the conquest, he stops for a festival, and it's called Festival of Apet, where they're honoring, you know, Amun-Ra and, you know, all these gods. Why? Because he wants to point out the fact that, listen, I'm going to be as pious as the kings from 2,000 years ago, not the ones that are now. So now, what's interesting, let's go to the next one. So now we come to the king and his brother Shabaka. So what's different between Egyptians pharaohs? So now we started at 25th dynasty, which is the Nubian dynasty of pharaohs. And what's different between their dynasty? He doesn't promote his son to be a pharaoh. He promotes his brother. That's a big difference. In Egypt, this almost never happened. There's always a son, or, you know, but in Nubia, they have nephews that are being promoted. They have brothers are being promoted, sometimes sons as well, but it's never just strictly due to the lineage. So, and that's his brother. His name is Shabaka. All right. And so what's interesting about Shabaka is, so he succeeded his brother, and he's a bit of a philosopher, right? In the Bible, you know, because of this guy, Shabaka, and actually another king, Taharka, we'll get to that, they call him a pious Ethiopian kings. So if you go to the next one, this is in a British museum in England, which was discovered. This is actually from Shabaka, which is a Nubian king, Nubian pharaoh. And what this is a first philosophical statement from the Nubian king, Shabaka. And what does it say? Well, initially, this was discovered, farmers discovered it and actually used it as the grinding stone. They didn't know what it was, and that's why it lost its shape. It was a stela. It was discovered in the 19th century. Now it's in the museum of British Museum. This is the only document we have from Egypt that can be called philosophical. The Egyptians didn't write down philosophy because they were religious. They didn't believe in it as a philosophical statement. Shabaka curved the stone, which sometimes called philosophy of Memphis priests. It's partially theological. What Shabaka says, I found a document and I made it anew. Okay, so it means that he copied a damaged document. Okay, he's restoring Egypt's heritage. That's what he means. So he's going back to 2,000 years ago, and he's saying, "You guys lost your ways. I'm going to restore it back to the new way, not to the old way." And this document tells about the creation of the world. Does it remind you of something? The Bible story, right? And what's remarkable about it, it is very, very close to the Bible, extremely close. What it says that the god Ptah, who we know is the god of Memphis, northern capital of Egypt, Ptah is a creator god. And document says that Ptah creates the world. How does he do it? he thinks about it, he says it on his tongue, and it becomes real. It's almost the beginning was the word. Okay, so it was a God's word. You understand?
That's what the Bible said, or that's
No,
what
no. This is prior to Bible. This
no,
is
but
like-
I know that everything begins with the word and blah, blah, blah. That's the Bible too.
Correct.
Everything, yeah.
This predates the Bible. This is what it says. And this is
Mhm.
this is from the king Shabaka. Okay, so that's how. So this Nubian kings are actually extremely pious, and they write philosophical stones, and they do this incredible things. You know. And what's interesting is, and we'll talk about it too, but they put their pyramids even next to each other in Nubia because they want their family, right? They want to be close. They're not like, you know, pharaohs where they put, you know, their pyramids a miles away from each other. You can literally, if you stand next to pyramids, you can touch both of them if you stretch your arms out. In that place called Kuru, which is next to the Gebel Barkal, where he was buried. They were all buried next to each other. You know, Shabaka, Taharka, and you know, P were all buried next to each other. So, any questions? No. All right. So after Shabaka, we have his nephew ruling. His name is Shibutki. And Shibutki again shows that he loves his sister, and he sends his sister, her name is Shepenwepet, interesting name, and to rule Egypt for him. Though they're ruling, you know.
What was her name again?
Shepenwepet.
Okay.
So he's trying to control Egypt from the south by having, you know, her. But, you know, the dark times are looming. 750 BC. Who is coming? Assyrians, right? You know, and Greg, I remember, did one of the presentations on Assyrians, you know, particularly invading Egypt. But guess what? Who are they invading? Nubian pharaohs. There are Nubian pharaohs there. So who is ruling at a time of Assyrians invading is this guy. And his name is Taharka on the left. And I know this is not a good picture, but maybe, you know, he's basically shown in you know, in the face of God. And when he rules this, you know, Egypt, he actually meets Assyrians in Judea. And we know from the Bible and Herodotus, two different accounts of Taharka fighting Assyrians. First account from Herodotus. We know Herodotus always made up things, but he writes, when he was in Judea, which is right here, when Taharka, which is the pharaoh, Nubian pharaoh, what was fighting Assyrians, Herodotus says, at night, just before the battle, battle begins, the battlefield mice ate the bowstrings of the Assyrians, and Taharka wins because Assyrians wake up in the morning and their bows are useless. What does the Bible say? The angel of the Lord kills many Assyrians. Basically, both of them saying Taharka won, just commemorating the same thing, you know. But Assyrians are very persistent. As you know, they're ruthless. They, at one point, I think Assyrians went to area of current Armenia, and when they conquered Armenia, they cut out 1 year from the each resident of the at the time Urartu, and to commemorate they didn't give up in their own time, or they should have gave up. So essentially, Taharka loses at the Battle of Thebes to Assyrians, and obviously everything from there goes downhill. So what do we have here? So when Taharka won the Judea battle, his son was abducted by Assyrians. And on the right, bottom right, you see his son on his knees praying to Assyrians to please let me live. I want to live. I don't want to die. Please don't kill me. On the right, in the city of Karnak, we actually have Taharqa put up this a structure. That's the only, he was a builder. Taharqa was an amazing builder, but this is the only structure that survived in the city of Karnak that he built. It's an amazing structure. It's like 25 feet. It's beautiful, but it's the only obelisk that's left. Okay. Any questions?
No?
All
Oh,
right.
you mentioned the 70 BCE. Is that the estimated date of the Genesis when it was written?
No, I didn't refer to Genesis. This is
No, well, you didn't.
this is on the Egyptian side. I don't know what.
Yes, but you said the story is very similar or analogous.
Well, the Shabaka lived in 800 BC.
Right. Do we know what do people think today was the date of Genesis?
No
I
idea.
think the Hebrew Bible was written down around the time of the Babylonian captivity, which was around 500 BC, 600 BC. Some of it perhaps before that, some of it after that, but it was written down from pre-existing oral stories. But that's when it was written down. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Ralph. So that's around the same time. So we're talking about 750, 800, and then you're saying 700, right? All right. The last king of Nubia was the Tanutamani, 664, 653, that ruled Egypt. And on the left, that's his depiction. He didn't do so well. He lost Egypt to Assyrians. So let me get to the, we spoke about the military, that they thought of them as Tasseti and bowmen. So let's talk about a little bit of description of the Nubians, right? Well, how did Nubians look? All right. Perhaps the best preserved physical depiction of Egyptian neighbor comes from the tomb of 19th dynasty, King Seti, 1290, 1274. Seti's first tomb shows the Libyan with a fair complexion, beard, long gown, and 2 ostrich feathers in their hair. Nubian is shown as having black complexion with sub-Saharan facial features, wearing an ornate kilt. Egyptians, did allow their neighbor to assimilate into their society. Nubians, obviously moved north, took the Egyptians, wives, and sometimes worked their way up in echelons in Egyptian society. All right. So now, we talked about the city of Nabata or Kerma. Now Assyrians attacking, Nubians retreat from classical, after the first cataract, Egypt, and we have a new city now. It's called Meroe, city Meroe, and I'll go back to the map just to show you. So if you look at the city of Nabata, which is right here, so all they did is they moved back to the 6th cataract. From the 4th cataract, they moved to the 6th cataract. And the city of Meroe, we go back to the explanation. Sorry, I keep switching. Is 800 BC to 350. So Nabata or Kurna, capital, goes down, and Meroe is being moved. Why? Because now they're scared that Assyrians are going to attack. So they move down 1 cataract. And so what does it say? Meroe, 800 to 350 AD, almost to the during the Roman times, the Thar Nubia lay on the east bank of the Nile, about 6 kilometers north of the Kabusha station near Shendi, Sudan, 200 kilometers northeast of Khartoum. Khartoum is the capital of Sudan. The people there preserved many ancient Egyptian customs, but were unique in many respects. They developed their own form of writing, first utilizing Egyptian hieroglyphs and later using the alphabetic script with 23 signs. Many pyramids were built in Meroe during this period, and kingdom consisted of the impressive standing military force. Strabo, you know who the Strabo was, also describes a clash with Romans in which the Romans were defeated by Nubian archers under the leadership of one-eyed queen. Her name is Kandaki or Candace, blind in one eye. During this time, the different parts of region divided into smaller groups with individual leaders or generals, each commanding small armies or mercenaries. They fought for the control of what is now Nubia and surrounding territories, leaving the entire region weak and vulnerable to attack. Meroe would eventually meet defeat by a new rising kingdom of the south, Aksum, under the king of Zana. So we're gonna be actually
Zach?
talking about Aksum. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So where did you said that they were afraid of the Assyrians. Where did the Assyrians come from? The Nile, or they came from the east? How do they arrive there? Because Egypt was very protected by, I don't know how was south of the cataracts.
They had to only come to one way, through the desert. That's the only way they came. There's no other way. They were extremely protected by natural fortifications, correct?
So down where all those cataracts are, and still there is desert both sides of the Nile?
Well, now I don't have a picture of the Egypt particularly, but right here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they would have to come. I mean they already conquered Judea, right? So and Judea is kind of like very close to through Gaza Strip. You can kind of go to Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't particularly know. I mean, I know there was a battle of Thebes where Assyria defeated Egypt under the Nubian king Taharka. So I don't know how they came. That's the answer, basically.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So as I said, they retreated to the south. So just go through a timeline a little bit. Meroe was established in 890. Was Kushite city. Meroe was founded. I'm sorry, it was founded in 750. Meroe becomes capital in 590. It was kind of established with Nabata, but they didn't really use it because they already conquered Egypt. What do they need the fortification for? In 295 to 275, Argamenes rules that. And then so that further on, we actually come to Ptolemy attacking and conquering Meroic Nubian kingdom in 275, and they meet Rome at some point. As I said, Hannibal used Nubians, and I think Nubians then switched their allegiance to Romans at some point. So that's it. So let's just go through our arts and architecture. Egyptians took an early interest in Nubia, not because of the people, but because the land was rich and valuable in minerals. Part of the reason the Egyptians are so well known today is because their temples, tombs, and other works of art have endured centuries as well. Most of the temples were built with limestone or sandstone that would be quarried locally. But many of the impressive New Kingdom obelisks were made from granite, came from Aswan and Fantil. And several of the extant statues that now sit in the museum around the world are made from diorite, came from Nubia. Nubia was rich with gold, silver, electrum. And we'll talk about Amarna letters when Lisa's going to do it. That's why I'm not going to touch on it too much. But and gold and stuff like that. But Nubia was their gold mine, basically, because Egypt didn't have any gold, or had a little gold mines, but most of the gold mines were in Nubia. All right. So now, if you're talking about a culture, most of the carvings and paintings, pottery of ancient Nubia was greatly influenced in the style of ancient Egyptians. Most often, artists found inspiration in the scenes of everyday life, as well as historical events and histories of their rulers. Many scenes of harvest gatherings, religious ceremonies, and decrees by the kings are found depicted on Nubian pottery and temple walls. The Nile River was referred to the most often in the paintings as well. Vessels were made of ceramic clay during the early period of Nubian history, and later bronze, ivory, alabaster were used as well. And we'll talk about where they get the trade from, right? Nubian architecture, that's the most important part, okay? So, like ancient Egyptian, Nubian built pyramids, all right? Okay. Built pyramids to house deceased royalty. The construction of their pyramids, however, differed in shape and material. Differed in shape and material. The idea of the pyramids building was adopted by the Kushite ruler Kashta. That's where we get Kushite ruler Kashta. That's where they get Kushite kingdom from his name, Kashta. And Pianhi in the 8th century BC, because you want to go to 2,000 years of how they used to build all the pyramids from Sennacherib and Cheops and all that stuff. More than 200 pyramids have been discovered in Nubia. During the Old and New Kingdom, Pharaoh in Egypt left behind grand monuments and statues in Nubia, such as statues of Abu Simbel, built in honor of Pharaoh Ramses II. So, what's the difference between Egyptian and Nubian pyramid? Okay. So, as you can see, Nubian pyramids are a little bit more narrow. They're much closer to each other. And people, this is all solid rock. There's no graves inside. Actually, the tomb itself, I mean, this is just a tombstone. The tomb itself is 100 feet away from particular pyramid. This is all they want to do is just to show that they're like Egyptians, but they had absolutely been different. So what are things that are different? Before we get to that, this is the site, as I was telling you, where all the kings were married, called Clear Mountain. And what's interesting, this Clear Mountain, if you look, the reason it was picked by Nubians, if you looked at the mountain on the left, this particular structure, it shows like a cobra, and a cobra has a crown on top. And what's interesting, when one of the archaeologists took climbing lessons and climbed this structure, he saw that actually Nubians carved part of it. So if they saw that it didn't look like cobra, they actually, cosmetically changed it. He saw a lot of the, a lot of the cosmetic changes that he depicted to the original, stone from whenever it happened, like 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. So it was an interesting fact, and that's why this site was picked by Nubian kings, called Clear Mountain. So now, what's different? Okay, so as I've stated on the bottom, this site is called El Kuru, or Clear Mountain. As you can see, the tomb itself is only 100 yards away from the from the pyramid itself. Pyramid itself is a solid rock, unlike different from the Egyptian one. Also, the kings were buried on beds, or buried on funeral couches. And on the left, they were buried with a statue called Ushati. And Ushati actually is interesting. If you translate from the old Egyptian, it means an answer to the god. What are you answering for? As we know, Egyptian and Nubians believe that in afterlife, it's a continuation of the current life, right? So what if the god tells you to work in the afterlife? So they built this 200 Ushari statues. So when they die and they go into the afterlife, they turn into humans and they start helping you to do the work that God required you to do. Okay, that was the difference.
Zach,
Yes,
you say the pyramid is solid rock.
correct.
First of all, on pictures you showed, it seems like it's made of separate pieces. Second, if it's a solid rock, does it no? Yeah, like here, yeah, it looks like it's separate pieces, it's not
No,
solid rock.
I meant to say there's no tomb inside. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Okay, I see.
That's what I
Okay,
meant.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I meant it was solid structure. Okay, I'm sorry. As different from the Egyptian one. So, any questions? Okay, let's come to this guy. His name is Giuseppe Ferlini, okay, in the middle. This guy is a marauder. I mean, he's the version, the worst version of the one that was digging the Troy, Schliemann. So what he did is he heard about the Nubian burials and basically wanted to get his hands on all of these artifacts. I mean, not knowing that they're there. And so what he did is on the bottom left, he hired, workers to go through it and destroy the pyramids, 5 pyramids in a row. In the 5th one, he got lucky because usually they never buried a gold in the pyramid. But in one of the instances, this queen, Kandaki, the one-eyed queen, buried her treasure in the tip of the pyramid. And he was able to destroy the pyramid and took all, billions of dollars of, all these artifacts that are currently right now and were bought, actually, at the time it was bought by Ludwig I of Bavaria. And it's in the State Museum of Egypt of Art in Munich. So who is this guy? So this guy was actually a deserter. He enlisted in the British Corps. He's an Italian man. His name is Giuseppe Ferlini. He was born in 1797, died in 1870. And he enlisted in the British Corps that actually was in Africa as a physician, knowing that he wants to go after this gold, and he deserted the British Army to go do this thing. So now what he did is basically he hired workers and about 40 or somewhat workers, and went to work on the pyramids. They were in extremely good condition. But on the left, you can see they're left in a very dire condition. He destroyed them. So you basically leveled pyramid number 6 of Queen Kandaki Amenhotep, starting from the top, and finally found her treasure composed of dozens of gold and silver jewelry pieces. Overall, he's considered responsible for destruction of over 40 pyramids. Okay, and in fact, when it got a wind to the British Corps and and Egyptian authorities, they tried to find him. He escaped with his life and somehow made his way, to sell it to Ludwig I of Bavaria. And this is the artifacts, extremely valuable.
What was his name again? I'd like to follow up on him.
Giuseppe Ferlini.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I like those kind of intriguing mystery. Never found him, got away. I don't think so. A lot of payoffs.
Any questions? Anybody wants to add anything? Or all right. So now we come to the Nubian culture and religion. Basically, similar religious aspects. They believe Nubians also believed in the Ba and Ka. The Ba, the Ka was representing physical qualities of the being, while the Ba represented the non-physical characteristics, such as personality. Nubians represent Ba by statues of winged figures. So when Nubians entered Egypt, they also changed things a little bit. we all know Book of the Dead, right? And there's a particular part on awakening of Osiris. Does anybody know the Osiris story? It's a little sexual story, but in fact, Osiris basically goes to one of the parties, and his nemesis, I forget his, Hathor or whatever, Hathor's father, decides to basically kill Osiris by locking him in the grave, and his wife, also goddess, resurrects him, but couldn't find his penis because it was cut. He was cut in pieces after he was thrown into the Nile to be eaten by crocodiles. And then when he got resurrected, his wife goddess wanted to bring a child into this world, but couldn't find his penis. Was able to somehow reincarnate him with a penis, and they were able to impregnate. He was able to impregnate her, and he was a father of Hathor, which is the god of skies, and that's basically the story. So this is a Book of the Dead. So what's different about it? Nubians added people. On the right, you can see the awakening piece, and on the right, you have on top all these people. You see all these people? That was an addition from Nubians. It was not part of the Book of the Dead. Okay. All right.
Did you know, Osiris, that they have a mission to one of the asteroids called Osiris Rex? That's going up now.
Nice. Very nice.
Yes, it is. And it was named after him.
Oh, wow. So what is the effect of Nubians on Egyptians, right? Visual evidence can suggest that Egyptians was greatly inspired at one point by their Nubian neighbors. Egyptian murals depict the life of the Nubians as seen through their eyes, giving a clearer picture to how similar their working skills, attire, and religious were. So on the left, you're basically seeing how the Nubians, conducted their festivities. On the right, you see Egyptians. Very similar, except it's just different, ethnic groups. So the picture on the left is a depiction of a Nubian festival. The picture on the right is a mural of Egyptian banquet. The mural bears similar artistic style, and events portray similar aspects of the culture, such as providing tribute to the royals. So they both provide tribute to the royals. It was very similar. Okay. Government. How does government was structured? Nubian Empire was completely ruled by a monarch. There's no ways about it. But monarch has 3 jobs, right? He was a political leader, he was a spiritual head, and a military warlord. But he is allowed to have, remember, I told you that, Pi sent his sister to Thebes to rule. She was a treasurer. He just, he created a fake title for her, adoratress of Amun, but still, it's a title, so he allowed for the minister of treasury and stuff like that. So, and this is basically the structure. You have a pharaoh, then you have, viziers, senior officials, high priests, scribes, very highly ranked, skilled artisans and craftsmen, peasants, farmers, workers, servants, and slaves. Art. On the left, Nubian artists had a wide variety of raw materials to work with, including clay, stone, leather, metals, natural fibers for spinning and weaving. Beautiful examples of ancient pottery, leather working, metal smithing have been discovered from Nubian tombs. Okay, so the pot shown on the left is from the Medietic period of 250 BC. This is a Meroe period. Pottery from this area is particularly enchanting because of the lively images of animals, snake, frogs, rabbits, and stuff like that. On the bottom, you have amazing, again, pottery depicting animals, iron weapons, and then you have gold, obviously. And we'll talk about where they imported other stuff. Economy, mainly agriculture, and you could make your living by bidding them, miner, trader, blacksmith, or soldier. Exports. What do they export? Nubians, elephant, basically only elephant explorers of the elephant, what is it called?
Task.
Tasks, right? Besides Indians, and their elephant tasks were actually even ending up in Europe at some point. Imports. One of the most products imported by Nubia was bronze. Bronze was extensively used by the Nubians. The type of metals were the best available for making swords and daggers in the ancient world. The Nubians must have imported most of the bronze from Egypt. Hence, oil was one of the most commonly imported products in Nubia. Nubia has extensively imported olive oil from Lebanon via Egypt. Cedar trees and lumber were also imported from the Levant and used as the building materials. Temples and royal buildings in Nubia were mostly roofed with the cedar trees. Trading.
Zach, but also I think the Egyptians love their trees. I don't remember which kind of trees they had. They were cedar. Okay.
Yeah. Trading. Throughout history, Nubia was the closest trade partner of the Egypt, as I've said. Egyptian relief dating to the Old Kingdom depicts Nubians presenting Egyptian pharaohs with gold, ivory, ostrich feathers, palm fruits, exotic products, and animals like giraffes. But listen to this: exotic animals and other products from Nubia were exported to the Mediterranean world via Egypt. Frescoes in Minoan Palace in Thera, Greece, depicts antelopes. In the Minoan Palace in Crete and Thera, several frescoes depict monkeys. Those are the only were in Nubia. So how did they get it? And we know Minoan, Mycenaeans. Minoan were the Crete culture, and Mycenaeans were in the main Greece. Contribution to the by Nubians, invented sun clock, early system of geometry, rock gongs, type of medicine. Diet of the ancient Nubians: what they eat? Fruits, vegetables, meats, grains. Roles of the women: Nubian women were considered equal to men. Interesting. Which is just like Egyptians, but even more so prevalent. One Nubian woman acted as a queen warrior, which I was talking about, Kandaki. Women had many important roles in ancient Nubia. Style: the men wore loincloth or kilts. The women wore skirts. They both wore tunics and jewelry. Okay, that's it. Any questions? I'll just go in the beginning, or maybe a map if anybody wants to add anything.
I like to look at the map again. Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Put things in perspective when you see the map.
Yes. So anything below First Cataract that way is Egypt, Old Kingdom. Anything after the First Cataract is Nubia. But Egypt did extend itself up to the Nabata, which is Fourth Cataract.
Excuse my ignorance, but I think of cataracts as in the eyes, but
Right here.
a cataract is.
It's a bulger in the Nile River that you
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Zach. Yeah, cataract is a very rough place where it's you can't sail a ship through it because it's rapids, or the water is cascading over rocks, so you don't have a clear channel for a boat, and it's relatively steep. So I guess it's not really a waterfall, but it's in between a sort of a river and a waterfall. It's a rapids.
So you'd have to portage almost.
So you've got a portage around it, or some sort of transshipment. Exactly, you can't take a ship through it, but they're not too long. I guess they're I don't know, less than a mile long, I think, but not totally short.
But they're good for. Sorry.
If I could just comment on the climate of the region. I guess there are pretty much no trees anywhere in this region, so timber is imported from north, typically from Lebanon, the cedars of Lebanon, as Zach mentioned, but there's virtually no trees in this area. If you look at the satellite picture of Egypt and the Sudan, it's quite striking. It's all total desert, just white, sort of sand-colored desert, up through that, pretty much up to Meroe, up to there at the bottom of that. When you get down below there, then you start to get some rain. So both Egypt and the Sudan, except for perhaps a bit of the extreme southern Sudan, is entirely dependent on water from the Nile. Egypt and most of Sudan get no rainfall whatsoever. It's complete barren desert, like the Sahara Desert. But of course, it does have the Nile coming down from the mountains of Ethiopia, and that's their water supply. And so if you look at the picture, you see the desert with this narrow band of dark or green vegetation narrowly along the Nile, and that's where they have to get all of their food from. There's really nothing else in
What about,
Egypt or the
Ralph,
Sudan.
what about fruit?
Fruit, they could grow fruit trees in the irrigated land along the Nile, but there are no
okay.
fruit trees outside of the Nile Valley. Nothing grows.
It's like 2% of the whole country is very rich and the rest is desert. So
Yep.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, it could have been that at the time. Obviously, the climate had changed significantly as well.
Well, not much. I think if you go back to 8,000 BC, then it was more humid and then there was rainfall in the area. But I think since about 8,000 BC through the entire Egyptian era, all of the Old Kingdom, from the Old Kingdom on, it was entirely just the Nile flowing through the desert.
Yeah.
Well, Meroe, they say that Meroe actually stopped its existence in about 13th century AD because of the climate. And then now, if you look at the structures, I think they're totally. And even Nabata. I mean, I've shown Nabata. I mean, it's right in the desert, right here. So this was in the middle of the fertile city. Or flourishing city, and this is what's happening now, almost like Persepolis, right?
What I discovered yesterday is I took a thing on mummification. If it hadn't been for the arid lands and taking the moisture out of the bodies, they would never really have discovered doing mummifications.
Well, the only reason it works because it's a dry climate.
Yeah.
There's no mummification, or it's very hard to achieve in Europe or anywhere else.
Well, Abe is learning something every day, and I learned how to make a mummy.
I like how you talk to yourself in third person. Ava is learning. Ava is going to Mars.
Maybe.
Ava, what else are you doing? So yeah, I mean, any other questions or additions or any picture you want me to look at? And
a question about after the ancient connection between Egypt and ancient Nubia, was that the end of their relationships with one another?
No, if you look at a timeline, and I know I apologize, I didn't do much on the Meroe, but if you look at a timeline, Meroe is established in 750, and working all the way down, Ptolemy was part of. There was a Diadochi that conquered,
Right.
Egypt, and now he's conquering Nubia. Then you have Rome coming in after fighting Carthage, and Sinisa initially supported Carthage and Hannibal, and then defected to Scipio Africanus, at the Battle of Zama. So they were kind of flip-flop, you know. Initially, they almost conquered Rome when they were in Italy, you know, pillaging. And then when Scipio Africanus, you know, came to Zama, Nubians were like, okay, we don't like this. We're switching to Roman side. So, and they switched over. So it continued. And if you look at the timeline, Meroe lived through 350 AD. And then it was actually conquered by Aksum, which Greg will cover in about 2 weeks.
Okay,
And that's, you know, Ethiopian kingdom. Yeah.
thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? I guess not. Then, you know, this was a short one today. Well, Wednesday we have Alcibiades, you know, and, you know, from dialogues, you know, please join. If not on.
Zach, one thing you may recall, I love satellite pictures. I wondered if I could share a screen of a satellite picture of Egypt and Nubia.
Sure, I'll stop sharing. Go ahead.
Okay, you need to enable
Oh, I'm sorry.
participant sharing.
Yeah, 1 second. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. Oh, just a second. Okay, there. Are you seeing it?
Yes, excellent.
Yes.
Okay, so you can see there, and this just to the right of the center, you see Egypt with the Nile Delta at the top, and that's the Mediterranean at the very top, the Red Sea going down, slanting down, and then sort of Egypt, and then you see that S-shaped curve going all the way down through the Sudan until you start getting the green in the extreme south of the Sudan, and then Ethiopia and South Sudan. So Egypt, as you can see, is just Egypt and the Sudan and Libya and all across most of Africa. That's the Sahara Desert. That is just complete desert. There's nothing that grows there. And you have that narrow band of green vegetation along the Nile, a bit wider as you get up towards the Delta, and then narrower as you get through that, as you go up the Nile through the Sudan. But I think these pictures are very striking and just what these civilizations were up against in trying to develop something. They were completely dependent on the water of the Nile, which rose up in the summer and had high flow in the summer, but you did have flow in the winter as well, but mostly in the summer. Okay, thanks a lot.
Sure. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you guys again for joining and supporting the group, and we will see each other, you know, Wednesday or Sunday. We actually have Israeli Wars continuation part 2, so please join. And Wednesday we have Alcibiades.
Thanks.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks,
you.
Zach. Very nice presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks a lot.